Chapter 38, Part B, the Jesus Trilogy, Book 2, Then There Were Two. Josephus was in the process of writing his first book, a work about history. Its theme concerned his ancestors, the Massadans. He would occasionally ask Jesus or Mary questions, and usually one of them would have an answer. "What's that over there?" Mary said, pointing out the right-hand window toward the Dead Sea. "What?" Jesus and Josephus said simultaneously. "That smoke over there," Mary said. She sat up as she continued to point, a tinge of excitement in her voice. "I don't see anything but the sea, the Dead Sea," Jesus said. "Oh, no, I see it. It's—" Josephus' voice trailed off, realizing he may be seeing smoke from Sodom's ruins. His skin began to tingle at the thought. "It's just a little rift on the horizon, but it was definitely smoke of some sort, and it rose into the clear but rather heavy, hazy sky." Josephus told the driver to pick up the pace. It was a full hour before the carriage, inlaid with gold, silver, and brass designs, slowed to a stop. The small dirt road led to the right from the main road. It looked to be a half-mile to the water's edge and the source of the smoke. There was a gate blocking the path. On it was a sign saying, "No trespassing." "Go ahead, open it and go through. All they can do is turn us back," Josephus ordered. The taller of the two servants got down from the driver's seat, opened the unlocked gate, and waved the carriage through. The taller man closed the gate and then hopped onto the carriage. The carriage negotiated the rather bumpy road. The driver pulled up the four horses and Josephus hopped out. Mary and Jesus followed. There were four buildings. One was a large building in the center with a large smokestack still emanating a faint trail of smoke. Three smaller buildings flanked the larger one. What was common to all of them was the absolute putrid smell, and the fact that the place seemed to be deserted, not a living soul in sight. The three began to walk with one of the drivers toward the buildings. As they neared the buildings, the stench became even more intense. Mary's nausea overcame her, and she deposited what little breakfast she had eaten on the side of the road. The others couldn't even appreciate the odor of her half-digested breakfast due to the overwhelming smell coming from the buildings. In particular, the center building with the smokestack. Soon all five were nauseous. The two servants returned to the carriage, but the three explorers pressed on. One amazing quality the three possessed was a sense of curiosity which often superseded their better judgment. Today, this curiosity was at a fever pitch. The three pressed ahead silently, cautiously, with Josephus in the lead. There was still no sign of life. The smell was intense, but soon their throats began to burn as they inhaled the sulphurous air, but they continued on. "Now I know why they call it the Dead Sea," Mary said, breaking the silence. "Is this Sodom?" Josephus wondered aloud. "It's a place of smoking, as Solomon said." "I don't know. These buildings are of recent vintage," Jesus observed. "See, the cornerstone is 22 B.C. He pointed to the main corner of the building. "What are they burning?" Mary asked. "Maybe if we find out who they are, we can find the answer. Let's each take one of the small buildings and check them out, then meet back here and head for the main building together." The three each headed in a different direction toward one of the smaller buildings. Mary peered inside the door of one of the small buildings and saw a stack of coats and sandals piled high nearly to the ceiling. Josephus looked in his building, but it was empty, swept clean. Jesus looked over into his building and saw in the corner a huge black adder. He had never seen such a large snake. It was coiled as if to strike, but was some 30 feet from Jesus. He glanced around. There was some dust and debris on the floor and some old water bottles made of pottery. The roof was thatched. Jesus reached down to pick up one of the old water bottles. Right behind it was a huge black scorpion, nearly a foot long. Before it could strike, Jesus kicked it swiftly across the room. He took the bottle and rotated it around in his hands. There was some hieroglyph writing on its surface. He couldn't decipher the text, but when he turned the bottle over to look at its bottom, he froze. His skin began to crawl. Etched on the bottom in classic hieroglyph writing was the word Sadama. He crouched down in disbelief. It couldn't be, he thought aloud. From somewhere he thought he heard the words, yes, it can. Suddenly a searing pain rocketed through his left shoulder. He dropped the urn and grabbed his shoulder with his right hand. What he felt was the cool scales of the adder, its fangs embedded deeply in his skin. The pain was incredibly sharp, but he had the presence to grab the neck of the huge serpent, now coiling around his waist, and squeezed with all his might. Jesus was lean, despite gaining some 15 pounds since high school. He'd worked as a carpenter since he was a little boy and had tremendous strength in his hands, almost equal to his father. He used to arm wrestle, but he never beat his father, not even once. His grip remained strong in the neck of the writhing snake. As he squeezed, his teeth clenched, he noticed an unusual feature of the body of the snake. It had what appeared to be wings, some 4 feet long, attached about a foot below the neck. They lay flush with the sleek black body, but did not flap when he shook the serpent. After a couple of minutes, the body of the huge snake began to relax. It was strong, but no match for the carpenter's strong grip. Finally, it totally relaxed, spent of energy. Jesus tore it off his shoulder and flung it across the room. Mary and Josephus were now at the door. As the snake slithered slowly across the room, Mary let out a shriek. The snake sped up slightly and dove down a hole in the corner of the room. Josephus and Mary ran over to Jesus. "Are you okay?" they yelled. Jesus was now vigorously rubbing his shoulder. Josephus pulled down Jesus' coat and began to suck hard on the long on the 2 fang marks on his friend's shoulder. Each wound was 2 inches long and set some 8 inches apart. Josephus would suck some blood and spit it on the floor. He repeated the process for about 10 minutes. Mary recovered from her shock, helped by squeezing more blood from the wound in her love's shoulder. Jesus' shoulder began to throb incessantly. Finally he said, "If you keep sucking, I'll soon have no blood left in my body." His shoulder was rapidly becoming ecchymotic and swollen. His hand began to tingle. He kept working his fingers to keep it from going completely numb. "You won't believe what we found," Josephus said. "You won't believe what I found," Jesus said. "Yeah, big black devil," Mary said. "Pick up that jar," Jesus motioned with his hand. "This one?" Josephus said, reaching down to pick up the pottery jar. "Yeah, now turn it over." Josephus did so, and his eyes widened. Mary peered over Josephus' shoulder and let out a yelp. The 3 stared at the bottom of the jar and then at one another. None of them could speak. The 3 headed over to the main building. Jesus was feeling a little faint, but he insisted on seeing this Sodom. As they entered the door of the main building, the 3 were nearly overcome with the putrid smell. They gasped as they saw the huge furnace open door still aglow with coals and a rising trail of smoke. On the far wall of the room were some huge bins, and on the floor near the furnace door was a bone. It appeared to be a large bone. Josephus picked it up, and Mary immediately recognized it as a human femur. She nearly fainted. There were a few smaller bones scattered about, and she judged them all to be human. Josephus went over to one of the large bins and peered in. Now it was his turn to get lightheaded. He could not believe what he was seeing. There were at least 20 dead human bodies floating in formalin and embalming fluid. The other 2 took quick peeks, and then all ran outside and collapsed on the ground, gasping and retching. Jesus began to run his hand on his throbbing shoulder and promptly fainted.